Bleeding remains a huge challenge for the medicine even today. Almost 9% that people that died in Europe, in other territories, are dying because of blood loss. You need to read the emails, you need to look on the changes and to adopt them fast. Otherwise, you will fail, you will not get the certification. As a CEO, you need to think 10 steps ahead. To do studies in animals is cheaper than to do commercializations. As a CEO, I can tell you the best friend of mine is my
Welcome back to the GS MedTech podcast, where we explore the ideas, people, and technology shaping the future of healthcare. I'm Dame Medarsky, and today we're diving into a major milestone in the world of bleeding management and transfusion medicine. My guest is Zeev Dvashi, CEO of Plas-Free, a company that has just achieved CE mark for its ClearPlasma system, a technology designed to transform how clinicians manage plasma transfusions. Zeev, great to have you with us today.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. So before we dive into the company, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, in my background, I have a bachelor degree in economics, and also from that point, I decided that biology and medicine are more interested than economics. So was the switch. I have a PhD in immunology. This is my fourth startup that I'm engaging with. Doing a lot of medtech and pharma industry. This is, in our bloodstream.
Amazing. And so if you don't mind taking us back to the early days of Plas-Free, what problem were you originally trying to solve, and where did the idea for ClearPlasma come from?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. The medicine in these days did a lot of progress. Okay, we see the progression in cancer treatment, in diabetes treatment, ulcers, in spine and everything. But bleeding remains a huge challenge for the medicine even today. Please remember that almost 9% that people that died in Europe, in other territories, are dying because of blood loss. That means that with all the progression that there are today, there is still a lot of challenges to bring hemostatic agents and to provide better care for those bleeding patients. I met Professor Abed Hijazi. Abed is a professor at Hadassah University and also professor at Penn University in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. And we were discussing what is the best treatment today that is available for those patients. And we found that usually most of the physicians are using plasma. But plasma has its disadvantages and advantages. And I told Abed, what if we can take that plasma and upgrade its ability? And this is exactly where Abed's experience and knowledge as a physician said, we have a very good idea. If we remove from the plasma specific proteins that inhibit coagulation, we can provide better care for those patients and eventually stop the bleeding faster. And this is how the idea for Plas-Free came.
That's amazing. And how does your technology nowadays fit within today's transfusion and bleeding control workflow?
Yeah, so today in Europe, European countries are using more than 3 million units of plasma every year to resuscitate those patients, and a lot of adjuvants and medical device to put the pressure and support those bleeding patients. But the ClearPlasma device that is integrated with the same clinical protocol doesn't change the clinical practice, just taking the same plasma the physician administered for the patient and upgrade its ability is integrate perfectly well with in line with the practice to stop the bleeding. So we done 3 clinical studies, 2 big one in Italy, in Czech Republic, and in Poland, and in Israel, showing that our technology is better than available technologies available today. We proved that we reduce mortality in upper gastrointestinal bleeding, reduce complication, rebleeding episodes, and also reduce the risk for massive blood loss in cardiac operation.
So getting into the technology itself, in simple terms, how does ClearPlasma work and what makes it different from other filtration or replacement methods?
Yeah. So the clear plasma works with a filtration process, like you mentioned. We are extracting from the plasma specific protein named plasminogen and also providing by that plasma that is similar that you donate as a donor, but depleting of the fibrinolytic proteins that, as I mentioned. The good news is that the technology is very safe. As I mentioned, more than 3 million units are being used in Western countries in Europe to resuscitate patients with 0 side effects. And what we are doing is taking the same product that the physician are administrating and upgrade its ability to stop the bleeding faster with no any side effects. We have not found any side effects using our device in more than 200 patients in those clinical studies. So you just plug the filter, the kit to the plasma bag, and then let it flow by gravity and go to the patient vein. Very simple.
Okay. So one of my questions were around the frequency of using clear plasma in blood transfusion. Would that be every single time?
Yeah, we think that the majority of patients that will need the clear plasma are patients that in trauma conditions, cardiac operation, upper gastrointestinal bleeding, and PPH, postpartum
Mhm.
hemorrhage. Those are the most significant blood loss event that we can think. Of course, there is others, but I think those are the major four segments that we are concentrated in these days.
Okay. And how big is the total addressable market globally?
Yeah, it's above 3 billion US dollars.
Wow. Okay. And
Unfortunately, only in the US, for example, more than 65,000 people die every year because of blood loss. Only in the US. Those numbers are bigger than any other disease, and still there is little safe and effective technologies to help those patients. There are a lot of technologies that may risk the patient with thromboembolic event and others. We want to stabilize the patient faster in the cheapest way and the faster way.
you've mentioned the US, but you're in the news recently because of your CE mark. Congratulations on that again. And maybe you can walk us through what that journey looked like from obviously the concept all the way to receiving the certification.
Yeah, the device is classified as Class 2B in Europe because it's dealing with blood and everything. The good thing that I can say that we were working according to BSI demands and regulation, and they help us to plunder the road to get the CE mark. I think
Mm.
BSI, that is the British Standard of Institute, that were escorting us and auditing us. They didn't, they did life a lot of it hard and were very picky and did the audit very good. But eventually, they help us to understand the changes from the MDD to the MDR, and the audits that they done for us improve the company ability to generate better devices. So the process was to do like preclinical studies in animals to show the efficacy and safety. Following that, the biocompatibility process to make sure that no harm will be happening to nobody. I don't want nobody will be harmed and nobody else want. And from that point, we took it for clinical studies. And that was including clinical study that's showing performance and safety for the device. And once we had this hurdle removed and proved that, we can proceed for the submission of the technical file, the audits by BSI, and then the certification.
Amazing. And obviously, every founder, MedTech founder listening, knows how intense MDR can be and how complicated the notified bodies relationships can be. Looking back, what surprised you most about the process? And maybe what key lessons would you share with other companies that are pursuing the same?
Yeah, the notified bodies for their every month they are sending like updates or changes in the regulation, and you as a CEO must be aware for those changes. You need to read the emails, you need to look on the changes and to adopt them fast because otherwise you will fail, you will not get the certification. And today, because the MDR is almost completely adopted, and the companies that has the MDD before that and now need to do the transition with very limited time, you need to make sure that you're aware for all the changes. There was a lot of changes in the regulation that need to do adjustment in some products, in some SOPs, in some WIs, but eventually it goes only for the benefit of the patient. And this is how we need to look on that as entrepreneurs. If the patient will get eventually better devices, better technology, and a better QMS system or other system that can make sure that everything is smooth, it's better for you also as a CEO. No problems in the future.
Hmm. And I'm assuming there were some points and times when you thought that the process might stall and get delayed. What kept the team moving forward?
Yeah, it's a long process. It took several years to get the CE mark,
Yeah.
yeah, from the clinical studies to the final certification. I think that the motivation from the team to get this device, the CE mark, is the well awareness worldwide for the CE mark adoption. You need to understand in many countries, including Latin America and Southeast Asia, CE mark become a standard of care, really. They're accepting that more than other agencies, and because of the high acceptance criteria, the high demands, the many validation that you need to do, It's become very, very standardized in many, many countries. And me as a CEO need all the time to push the team to the limit, to improve, to do more validation, to do more tests, to make sure that we are in the same line with the last update from sent from the notified body. It's challenging, but again, the goal is to bring it to the market, and that was motivated everyone.
That's very good to hear. And obviously, you've mentioned preclinical and clinical evidence that has underpinned the CE mark. Can you talk to us a little bit more in terms of details on
Yeah.
those?
Yeah. So when you start your journey to find the way to get your device to be certificate, you need to find about a model in animals that will mimic what will be in real life. Okay.
Mm.
It's very important that you will choose a model that will be very adopted. And we, for example, did some preclinical studies that mimic traumatic injuries and more. Following that, after we show significant success, we went to very common indication that is the upper gastrointestinal bleeding. Those are usually men with liver problems or a little bit older that have some problems and their coagulation is not very well. And we proved that our device is reducing those fibrinolytic proteins very, very dramatically, preventing any additional blood loss and additional complication. And in the second clinical study, when we done in cardiac operation, that can be each one of us, right? Cardiac operation is the most abundant operation in the European countries. More than 800,000 operations are being done every year. Nobody wants to be in the situation that you need to have redo operation, to suffer from massive blood loss or any
Mm.
complication. And the reduction of those fibrinolytic proteins like plasminogen and others is helping you as a patient to get the best care. And that for us was really, really the point of reflection, where we started the journey from the concept, me and Abed, to show that we can really benefit those patients. Please understand that bleeding is a problem that can touch each one of us. It can be at home because you cut your hand during salad. It can be birth that complicated, cardiac surgery that went wrong, or God forbid, in car accident. So we need to find a good solution, and this is what we are doing in Plas-Free, providing solution, safe, better, and cheaper for those bleeding patients.
Awesome. And I see building a medtech business like climbing a mountain. You reach one peak and then you
Yeah.
drop down and then you need to reach the next one. So obviously you've reached the peak of CE mark and the regulatory hurdle for the European continent. What does now commercialization look like for Plus Free in Europe?
Yeah, so we are looking on three specific countries in Europe that include France, Germany, and countries in the Benelux area as the point of starting over there. We think that if we will start in Benelux, France, and Germany, it will drill down to other countries in the European community.
Mhm.
What we are trying to do is to do a pilot studies in each one of those countries to show the physician in their own hand that our device is, like we're telling, is very easy to use and provide better care for those patients. And once we have those KOL convinced that what we are saying is really can be done, we will start using their support to do commercializing in specific network, limited a little bit, just to go hand by hand to make sure that the device can be adopted.
Thank you. And are you planning to go direct or via distributor partnerships?
You need to understand that each country has its own language, has its own culture. You need to work with somebody or foot on the ground with distributors. We are negotiating several, but we are looking to expand our network. And as the same that we are working in other territories, we believe that distributors are the right way to do that.
Sensible. And obviously, mentioning the complicated landscape of the European market makes me think about the simpler USA market that's a little bit larger. What are your appetites for FDA and US?
Yeah. So FDA, yeah, and the CUS is the biggest market, and we are aware for that. For us, we will need to do additional clinical study as the device is being classified according to the FDA as PMA. PMA
Okay.
say that there is no predicate device, there is no something not similar. The
Mhm.
cons are that there is no something similar. The cons are that you need to do a big clinical study, and this is what exactly we are preparing. We are preparing that with the support. We got a small grant also that support us from the DoD, and that will take us all the way to FDA submission. Hopefully, will be in the end of 2026. The good news is that we will do a lot of commercialization activities in Europe that will be as like a training process for us in America, in the US, and
Yeah.
bring us more mature over there. And I think that's the right way to do it. Europe first, and then America.
That's very sensible as well. And obviously, the next hurdle usually for any medtech business is reimbursement. And obviously, mentioning PMA and the fact that there is no predicate device, how is that organized both in Europe and in the States?
Yeah. So for us, it's relatively easily because you need to understand every hospitals in Europe, in the US, has reimbursement code for treating a patient, for example, in cardiac operation. Part of the cost is allocate for hemostatic devices or
Mm.
drugs. And this is exactly where we enter in the picture. We are hemostatic technology that supports hemostatic patient and how you can treat them. And so it's very relatively easy for us. Again, we need to prove that we are cost effective. We need to show that we need to show pharmacoeconomics and others, but this is exactly for every hurdle that has any medtech company, and we will pass that. We have a lot of clinical data that can support it, but those pilots will be also like a small pharmacoeconomics showing the benefit, not only clinically, but also economically.
And how much of your attention is based on production? I'm assuming, obviously, it's a tick box that you need to have covered. So, from a manufacturing standpoint, how ready are you to scale up to meet demand now that ClearPlasma is approved?
Yeah, just to answer that question, Plas-Free is it's a medium-sized company. We have 14 employees that cover from regulation, QA, manufacturing, and and the project managers, etc. So our production team that include four team that we have a CEO named Samah Waked, amazing women. They have the capacity to produce up to 30,000 units a year. And what we are hopefully is that eventually we will need to scale it up, but we need to make the demand. It's like the chicken and the egg. Make the demand to make it scalable. But the good news is that we are manufacturing almost everything here in-house. We have a clean room, we have clean facilities that we are producing everything, and we know the scalability very good.
And we touched earlier in our conversation on obviously the similar technologies, but maybe you can talk to us a little bit more about competitive landscape of new technologies that are being developed. Who are they, and then maybe what sets Plus Free apart from those in developing in that space?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, even today in 2025, there are very limited good solution for internal bleeding. There are a lot of good solutions come from Cook Medical, from Teleflex, like the EasyClot and others that can be used mainly for topical treatment. And for topical treatment, there are amazing technologies that can really make the difference. For internal bleeding, there are mainly drugs that can be used, but the cons using drugs is the risk of thrombosis. And
Mhm.
nobody wants to have that. Nobody wants to be in that statistical. So this is the niche that we are focused, internal bleeding. And in that area, there is almost no device because you think about it, you need to penetrate the body. There are some medical devices like balloon that using in postpartum hemorrhage that can press on the arteries, but they are supporting. They are not generating the clot. The clear plasma device really uniqueness is that he can provide internal support for any blood loss that can be from the spleen to the heart to the kidneys or whatever.
Thank you for that. And maybe getting onto the subject of fundraising. Obviously, you've benefited from Horizon 2020 and you have a decent, healthy cap table as well. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what has your fundraising journey looked like to date and how have investors' expectations changed as you've moved closer to commercialization.
Yeah, again, you're totally correct. The EIC fund that we won, that is a grant and an equity, support the company a lot. One of the goals for the grant was to achieve the CE mark, and we achieved that. And thank you very much for them for supporting us. The company raised in total about more than 17 US million dollars from equity, from venture capitals, the DoD, the EIC, and more. And in these days, what we're trying to raise is more than $6 million to bring us to the commercialization phase. Surprisingly, to do studies in animals is cheaper than to do commercializations, and that's a very important note that every CEO needs to know
Yeah.
that commercialization costs a lot of money because you need to make the awareness, you need to take the attention, you need to build your network, and that's cost time and money. But if you are in the position that you have revenues and increasing EBT, that's put you in a position that will be more attractive for acquisition. And that's exactly what the main goal for Plas-Free: to grow, to make more jobs, to build more people, and eventually to be very attractive to for consolidation with other big manufacturers. And I think that's something that every company is experiencing, going from the evolution, going from preclinical, clinical, and to commercialize. And you see that it's the CCC, it's the preclinical, clinical, and commercialization steps that you need to do.
So obviously you've mentioned on the surprise or the fact that animal studies are not as expensive.
Yeah.
Maybe if you want to summarize for other medtech founders that are listening, what's your biggest lesson in developing a class 2B medical device in a highly regulated field?
Yeah, first of all, it's very, very challenging. You need to build a team. You need to build a team of people that has the experience, or alternatively, people that are willing to learn fast and have the ability to learn fast. Without that, it's very challenging to pass the MDR regulation. Really, really, it's very challenging. Second thing, you need to make sure that you are doing everything in line with the new guidelines. You can, maybe people think that FDA and MDR are very similar, but they're not. There are some overlaps, but most of the things are very unique for the MDR. Most of the demands are very unique. You need to make sure that you have the attention to read all the ISO and everything and all the certification. But on top of that, you need to make sure that the market in Europe will eventually embrace that. You need to show that from the moment you thought about the idea, you would like to take it all the way. There is somebody that will buy it in the end of the day, not just develop a product you say, I develop. To bring a product that somebody eventually will try it in clinical studies, use it, and then would like to buy it. That's the main idea.
Awesome. So I couldn't agree more with you on team and how important that is. And obviously, these journeys take an incredible perseverance. What has been key to building and sustaining your team through the years of development and regulatory work?
Yeah, so you need to look on that in two ways. First of all, I started my way as entrepreneur in a small company that eventually was acquired, and then it makes me the next entrepreneur. And I think that's what you would like to understand in building a team. You sometimes you need to give a chance to people that are, with knowing a lot of experience, and to show to give him the time a little bit to grow, and sometimes you will gain from that. Sometimes you need somebody different position. You need somebody that has a lot of experience, but you need to have all those people to have the same goal. They need to have the same road. They need to have the same vision. So that makes together. That makes the feeling that we are working for the same goal. Employees would like to be awarded with three things: good words, good relationship, complimentation, and also they would like to see from you as a CEO that you appreciate their work and understand how much they're offering that. Help them to be developed, send them to courses, allow them to learn more, to do more courses in the area of their field. And I think last but not least, make events that will make the togetherness feeling me much more impact, because people that like to come to work with their fellows to be together eventually will be more fruitful, produce more quality results. That's the main idea.
Yeah. It's very important, isn't it? Because obviously it's a marathon. It's
Yeah,
not a sprint. So it takes a lot longer to achieve your goals. So you need to maintain that level of motivation, even during periods of no news, immediate or visible progress, but at the same time, knowing that you're ticking along and you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, most of the time as a startup, as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of failures. Most of the time. Only few times in a year you have some success. So the time is very, very hard. But when the success coming, you need to enjoy that and you need to embrace that. But again, together as a CEO, I can tell you the best friend of mine is my computer. Really, this computer that I'm talking with, my best friend. So the position to be a CEO is very, very lonely. You have the board, you have your employee, you need to
Yeah.
find a way, the shareholder, the stockholders, you need to navigate between all of them. And you need to be the lighthouse of optimism for everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Transfer the optimism, make sure that everybody aware in that. The investors, the board of directors, the employees, and everything. It's a long marathon, you mentioned, and you're totally correct. We are 8 years developing several products, including the ClearPlasma. It takes some time. There are the pandemic, there is a lot of things that it's out of your hand, and you need to pass them and continue. And eventually, you as a CEO, your optimism is the most important.
Funny enough, I had Bart Stulens from Neurocluse last week on the GS MedTech podcast, and he moved from a big organization onto a small startup. And his comment was learning to fail fast and move on was the most important thing that I had to pick up immediately
Yeah,
from
yeah,
working in a startup.
totally correct. Totally correct.
So, looking forward, obviously, you've mentioned new products. What's next for Plas-Free?
So Plas-Free will be, you will see it in the hospital. I hope nobody will see it. I hope everybody will be healthy. But it will be in the hospitals in several territories in Europe. We will publish some clinical results. I think that's the most amazing thing. But we are
Mhm.
looking also for expanding our, the issue is that not become a binary company, zero or one. To have companies that have more products in the pipeline that can be the future growing engine. And we have two additional products. One of them is a big filtration system for whole blood. Whole blood become a standard of care in in trauma care, in trauma patient in the US, Israel, and other territories in Europe. And now we are in the final stages to develop a very unique cartridge that can deal whole blood. We have another device that is a liver support system that really support you in event of liver failure and can provide you up to 8 hours external liver.
Mm.
So yes, we are very innovative in those area of blood filtration, and we are trying to grow to make this company not a binary company, as I mentioned, as a company that has the engines of growing that will have commercialization and R&D, make it very interesting company.
So that's very good to hear. And maybe to wrap up our conversation, if you could boil down your journey from the idea all the way to the CE mark into one mindset or lesson, what would that be?
As a CEO, you need to think 10 steps ahead. You need to see the results of today and to understand how it be implicated 10 steps ahead before everyone. You have responsibility as a CEO for your employees, for your shareholders, for your board to make sure that you're using right of the money that was invested in the company and to think far and to bring a vision. If you have a vision, you can succeed.
That's very, very good answer, I have to say. And maybe as a final question from my side, what keeps you most excited about the future of Plus Free and the medtech industry as a whole?
I think the medtech industry, and then I will also discuss about Plas-Free. Medtech industry is growing rapidly. We are seeing the involvement of digital health, AI, decision maker system, helping the physician to choose the method of treatment for every patient depending on its clinical evaluation. Today, there are a lot of development that using AI, using software, using other technologies, the implementation of them and the use of them become very more easier to design, and they are more like more easy to be used and more fit for the changes in us, in human, and the needs. There is a lot of things that few years ago, if you were using them, they were not comfortable for you and not easy for you as a physician. Now they are more ergonomic, more easier, more disposable sometimes. So there is a lot of change that we are seeing in the medtech area, and it's growing rapidly. For
Mm.
Plas-Free, I think we are between the 5 or 6 only companies that deals with blood purification and blood filtration. What we are doing here is amazing in respects for innovation. We are bringing new concepts, new ideas. I only wish that we can grow fast, as I wish as a CEO, as in my vision, to grow more fast. But sometimes you have dreams, and sometimes, until it will make them fulfill, it takes time, as you mentioned. But we are
Yeah,
dreaming.
and as we mentioned earlier, it's a marathon running a
It's
medtech business.
mountain.
So definitely you're on the right track.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Zev, I mean, thank you for joining me and sharing Plus Free story. It has been a thoroughly enjoyable conversation, so I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that.